All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we're going to preview the Maine game as much as we possibly can. Basically, going to go over what we expect to see out of the Sooners, maybe what we hope to see injury wise coming back for Oklahoma this week. There was no injury report since it's not an SEC matchup. So there's some things definitely up in the air as to the status of a few guys that would like on the last few weeks be doubtful. So we're going to talk more about that. Before we get into everything, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Follow us on all social media, link down below, and Apple Podcast and Spotify. All right, main game. What is this? Game 9 of the
Game
season.
nine.
So 4 games left. Oklahoma at this point can really just play spoiler and get into bowl eligibility for themselves. Really nothing too crazy that is on the line for this team and Brent Venables um, moving forward. So this main game, what do we expect? I mean, Brandon, I'm gonna kick it over to you first. I know it's Maine. It's with how things have gone. It's probably easy to hope for not a loss. But what do you expect out of the Oklahoma Sooners, especially their offense going into now week 2 of Joe John Finley's offensive coordinator career at Oklahoma?
Win, hopefully score. I mean, you certainly hope that we can move the ball and score against Maine. In the first half last week against a good Ole Miss team, we looked like a real football team for a second. If you play like that in the first half, you blow Maine out. I think if you play poorly, you should still be able to beat a Maine team. We were talking about it before we started recording, man. Like just with the way the season has gone and how injured and everything is, and this might be the most nervous I've been for a football game in a long time, just because it is Maine. They're Maine. I don't know shit about them. They're 4-4 in the um, what is this Coastal Athletic Association conference. Don't even I know nothing about Maine other than they're not very good. Obviously, they're not on the level uh, of an Oklahoma or anybody really in the P4 or even D1 FBS. It would be terrible if it went south. I don't at all envision that, but this is I'm nervous just because that's how the season's gone. But I mean, score the ball, please. Protect better. I think we've given up 10 sacks or whatever in our last two games each, so 20 sacks in 2 weeks or whatever the number is. I'd certainly hope that Jackson Arnold could be better protected against the Maine Black Bears. Maybe not get sacked at all. I know that sounds crazy, but it'd be really cool to see us give up 0 sacks against Maine. And let's just put, a 50 burger on the scoreboard for the first time since Temple or whatever. Let's have a fun, relaxed 51-3 type game again.
Yeah, this has to be a confidence booster for not just the players and the coaching staff, especially on the offensive side, but for the fans. I think there's not really kind of like how your perspective was going into the Temple game to start the season. There's not much to gain out of it for Oklahoma because if you look bad, you know, the sky is falling on this program. If you look bad against this main team, it's not going to be good. But if you're not like the expectation is still to look competent and really very good against an opponent of this caliber who really doesn't play anyone of the stature, the size, the speed of an SEC program, no matter how bad Oklahoma is this year. It's not normal for a team like Maine to have to prepare for the size and speed of an Oklahoma or any SEC team for that matter. So for Oklahoma, it really has to be just live up to the expectations that the brand of Oklahoma would have. Not just this year or this offense. Like you got to put up, 50 or near 50. When the game is all said and done. Defense has to look really good. They have been, so it's not really like a question mark there. Hopefully, pass defense is a little bit better. They create some pick opportunities. The if the offense, especially the offensive line, looks even a little questionable, it's going to be hard for the rest of the season to think it's going to get any better. I mean, it's already hard enough. So don't put it in a worse spot for these fans. You've got one home game left, and it's against Alabama. I think the turnout is going to be there, but it can quickly die off if you have a bad showing against a team like Maine. And it just can't happen. Jackson Arnold, I think this is, again, a confidence booster for him, and hopefully one where he feels a little bit better. The one hope, I guess, really is Deion Burks. We were talking about it before we started recording. There's two sides of it, and I think I would understand both. You play him if he's healthy enough to kind of give him a warm up game. He hasn't played, real snaps of football for what, 5, 6 weeks.
Since
So
the
it's
Tennessee game. So yeah, it's been a while.
yeah, it's been plus a bye week in there, so it's been a while. To get kind of his legs under him, get the rust off so that he can be prepared for next week's Missouri game, which is, reigniting a rivalry or rivalry type environment when Oklahoma travels to Mizzou. The other side of it is, and I would understand it as well, sit him. It's Maine. You don't really need him in this environment. Let the young guys get some confidence themselves in the wide receiver room, and have him be 110% for the Mizzou game. It's going to be interesting to see how the staff handles it because, again, being so long without football, yeah, he practices, or you would assume that he's getting some level of practice reps in, but live game situations are a little bit different when the defense doesn't know exactly what's going to go on, or like tendencies of the personnel. So we'll see what happens Saturday. I'm on the side of let him play, even if it's for a half. If there's any starter that deserves to sit after a good half of football, it's probably him, not just for the purposes of recovering and knocking the rust off, but he's actually probably been the most consistent when he was actually on the field. He was the go-to wide receiver for Jackson Arnold, and it just happened to be that he got hurt right when Mike Hawkins got put into the lineup. So we'll see. I don't know what everyone else is going to think about that, but I kind of hope we see him this week just so that he can get back into the flow of the game.
There's no doubt he's the best receiver that we've had this season when he's on the field. And he's definitely Jackson's favorite target. So I get all that. And I get your argument for a warm-up game and things like that. So he was on track, I think, to go against Ole Miss last week and had to bang up in practice, and that set him back again. I think just because of that, him getting hurt in practice and setting him back, even if he can go on Saturday, I would sit him out just on that alone. I don't know how much. I get it's real live competition. Send him on a couple go balls or something, I just a couple runs or whatever. But I think it's Maine. You shouldn't need him. I would, just because of him getting hurt in practice, and I'd sit him and just make sure he's as ready as we can get him for that Mizzou game, because I think that is a very winnable game up there in Columbia. And I think these next two games realistically are your two best shots at bowl eligibility. I think if you grab both of these, you're obviously at 6 wins. You're 6-4. No matter how the rest of the season turns out, you're going bowling. And I think these are your best opportunities to do so. I would sit him regardless of his availability on Saturday, but I don't get to make these calls. I think just more things for the main game. Defensively, I'm with you. I think that they'll have a very solid showing. I mean, they've been pretty good all season. Maine should be no real test for them. So in that regard, for them, I'd like to see, the Jaden Hardys, the Michael Boganowskis for extended playing time. Hopefully, that it's very ugly at halftime and we can throw out all of the young guys and kind of get them a lot of run. I think that would be fun. And then think on offense, how cool would it be to see us hit, just maybe our first long ball play of the season. Let's hit a 70-yard touchdown pass.
It would be the second one of the season. Can't forget about the J.J. Hester one in the Auburn game, but it would be.
It wasn't a touchdown, but it was a big play. Yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
Technically, the Brennan Thompson play against South Carolina, but that was like 30, I think, 35.
Yeah. It just doesn't feel like much has happened on the offense to extend the field. So hopefully those happen more frequently. The second week, again, with Joe John as your play caller, mean, you hope that the offensive line gets better. They looked pretty good in that first half against Old Miss. Jake Sexton's kind of the easy thing to point at where it was a big difference, and it seems like he's going to be missing an extended period of time, if not the full season, here for Oklahoma. So again, a brand new starting five yet again. This one is definitely not on Coach B. I think this week he's kind of been the hot topic on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, where you have people on one side of the coin that are like, this guy needs to be fired yesterday, and then you've got people on the other side where maybe to also their own fault are not looking at the product on the field and are protecting and are very protective of Coach B. That I think the truth lies in the middle there with those crowds. Coach B definitely and obviously had a lot of success at Oklahoma, but over the last 3 years, and from my point of view, since Brent Venables has been the head coach, the year one with Brent Venables, not a very good offensive line. Uh, Year two with Brent Venables, it was better. It was inconsistent to start, but got better throughout the season. So that's what you expect out of a Coach B line to continue to get better. And this year, I get you had to replace every single person on your offensive line, but the lack of development with the younger guys and having to go after portal, uh, a whole new offensive line through the portal basically is what was put together, and that didn't work out. It's tough to be like, yeah, this guy knows what he's doing because they're still like the young guys that have played are still making a lot of mistakes, and it's not like these are true freshmen. Jake Taylor and Jake Sexton are redshirt sophomores, so they've been in the program for this would be their third year. Joshua Bates, I think, looked really good, but you decided to set him to play Branson Hickman and now Troy Everett. Why not let the younger guys play? That's my point of view. Now, if he stuck around, I'm also not going to be like, God damn it, this is the worst thing of all time. He's clearly kind of earned that grace of having one just god awful season. But if it's a two in a row, then whoever is potentially the offensive coordinator, assuming it's not Coach Finley, will have to almost immediately have to make a big personnel decision come year two of his tenure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Coach Beatonbow's been good enough for long enough to have another season, regardless of how bad this season is. I get this season's terrible. I mean, Jackson Arnold, Michael Hawkins, whoever the hell's playing quarterback is running for their life 24/7. It's been an awful season, without a doubt, his worst season as a coach, and the product has just not been good. It's not even bad. It's terrible. But I mean, last year, I don't know, Coach B. I mean, you lose 2 games last year, and both the games we lost were not the offensive line's fault. I think the Kansas game was the worst game I've ever seen called, until this season rolled around, with Jeff Levy being just afraid to throw the ball because it was raining, even though Kansas had no problem calling pass plays. And then, Oklahoma State, that I think we get cheated, whatever. But yeah, with Coach B, I think he's getting another chance no matter what. Just there's some guys in this recruiting class that we haven't played yet that, I think maybe they're sitting them for a year with the hopes that they're good to go next year. Guys like Eddie Pierre-Louis, potentially Eugene Brooks. I think in this upcoming class, you have potentially 2 starting tackles, 2 guys that I think are going to be very, very good, and Ryan Foji and Michael Fasusi. And I don't know if, obviously, it's you're not going to keep Coach B just because of those 2 guys. You're not, even if they decommit, we're a bigger program than that. We're not going to die because 2 kids decide to decommit. But I mean, I think you definitely want to see what they can do. And they're both Coach B guys. I think you're gonna give them another chance. But on the other side of that, I'm 100% with you. Where I would, as far as a criticism of Coach B goes, because I do agree. I think that we, especially in a year like this, that essentially is over already. I know the coaches can't have that perspective because their job is to try and win games. Like, they're still coaching to go 8-4. That's the plan. As fans, we can kind of sit back and be a little more realistic and kind of realize 8-4 is probably not going to happen. That'd be like if we finish 8-4, it might be my favorite. It might be my favorite OU season of all time, just because of how bad it's been. But as fans, we can kind of be like, this season is a wash. It's a loss. Let's play all the young guys. That's obviously, the coaches can't have that mindset. And if they did, we'd be pissed off as fans. Coaching college football at a high level program like Oklahoma or any place like that has to just be, there's the highs and lows, like being a fan, because when you're looking good, everybody loves you. When you're having a season like Coach B is right now, everybody on Twitter is saying fire him, and that's just, at the end of the day, it realistically is one terrible season with a long history of being good.
Yeah, it's really gonna think his job security doesn't really rely so much on what the season looks like for the next 4 games, or in hindsight, we can when the season ends, hindsight's always 2020. We can look back and probably see some things that weren't working in his favor. But the new offensive coordinator hire is going to be, big time on his job security. We were talking about it yesterday a little bit. I think after our last video, we didn't really discuss, like, obviously staff who would fill in, because that's a lot of detail that you'd have to do, just probably weeks of digging to see who's got connections with who, if anyone has connections to OU, that would be beneficial for both the new OC and the school, and so on and so forth. But we talked about it a little bit, not so much on like the who would fill in these roles, but if it's a guy like Ben Arbuckle or GJ Kine from
Kenny.
Texas State, those guys are both pretty young. So you would assume that Coach B would be a guy that they kind of rely on coming into Oklahoma, him being familiar with the brand of Oklahoma, what things look like here for new offensive coordinators, and kind of help mentor them a little bit, but also have some stability there for both the recruiting and the offensive staff. And Coach B wouldn't be the worst guy to keep around. Again, looking at his track record of developing offensive line as a unit, you probably have a hard time when you're that young of a coach knowing someone that can do better. Not that there isn't someone that could potentially be better, because I think there is that possibility. But 29 years old, or I guess if Arbuckle were to be the hire, he'd be 30. I think
DJ
Kines is
Kenny's
like,
35 right now, maybe 36 by the season next
yeah,
year.
he's a little bit older, but still like pretty young in a coaching career where your connections probably haven't been built up enough where you have someone top of mind that you believe could for sure be better at recruiting and development, the offensive line position. So I think those guys are kind of his best bet to keep to keep him around, because he would be really beneficial for offensive coordinators like that.
Yeah, and and here's how Coach B's he's a Joe Moore award-winning coach. He's had the history's there and stuff. And what's crazy is next year, if we do keep him, which I think is likely the what's going to happen, I think Coach B does stick around at least for another season. If he's this bad next year, I'll be with you guys. I'll be with everybody pounding the table right now. Back-to-back terrible seasons like this it sucks, because no matter how good you are in the past, that's enough where you're done. But I mean, it's one terrible season, and here's what's crazy is if you retain him, the line looks night and day different next year, which it's not going to be that hard, honestly. If they look good next year, good enough to win games, if Oklahoma's a 10-win club next season in the SEC and the offensive line is looking good and you're scoring 35, 30 plus points a game and you're winning games, the same people who are tweeting that he should have been fired will be on Twitter saying, I never doubted it, shit like that, and just delete all their tweets about him being canned, and that's just the way of college football. I think it's at a program like Oklahoma, that's how it works, and our fans are frustrated, so it's fire everybody time, but it's not realistic.
Yeah, it's not the outlook that more than likely happens. Last thing for this upcoming game, X factors and score predictions. You want to go first here?
Score predictions first. Let's go 51-6. I'm gonna say we put it on them. It's gonna be fun. I don't even know. X factors defensively, it's so tough. I think everybody should look good. I'm gonna go with somebody young, because I think we should. In an ideal world, in a 51-6 game, like I'm saying here, you're gonna see a lot of the young guys. I want to see like a Michael Boganowski be the player of the game defensively, or a Jaden Hardy, or somebody that doesn't really get a lot of runs. That's going to be a big part of the future. I want to see them be the guy to light it up. Maybe even David Stone. He rotates in a lot right now, but this could be a game where he's the guy out there at defensive tackle for most of the game. So I want to see one of those guys who don't consistently get a lot of runs become the best player on our defense for this game. Put together a half of just being dominant against a team that you should be able to dominate. And offensively, let's hope that Arnold, because I think it is going to be big. I understand it's Maine, but I think if you're Jackson Arnold, if you're fans of Oklahoma, you have to feel at least decent about how he looked in the Ole Miss game, especially in the first half. Second half, when he's running for his life, it's a different story. But a lot of that is it's really hard to fault a quarterback when he gets sacked 10 times in a half, pretty much, because it was that bad. So it's hard to come and point fingers at him, especially with the receivers that are all out. I think you built a lot of confidence in that first half. This should be a game where ideally he lights it up. He has, four or five touchdown passes. He feels good. So I think I'd love to see Arnold be the player of the game offensively and kind of roll into Columbia next week, feeling good about himself. Because I do think, again, I think that's a very, very winnable game for Oklahoma.
Okay, so score prediction, I'm just gonna copy you. Would you say 51-6? I think that's fair. Probably because you can sprinkle in a defensive touchdown in there with this game and this upcoming opponent. X factors, similar vein, where like you want to see young guys go out there. I want it to be a linebacker though, given that it is going to be, I think the biggest loss for this upcoming off season will be Danny Stutzman. He's been the vocal leader, kind of the guy that's helped to lead in this Brent Venables regime with this defense. Have one of these young guys. In a way, this is an early part of the passing of the torch for someone to step up in that role. Not that we wouldn't miss Bailey Bowman, but he's a little bit more of like the number two or maybe just a locker room leader that I'm sure is going to be missed. But Danny's the more outward one. You want to see someone, linebacker, defensive lineman, whoever it is. I think it's got to be a linebacker given that it's a Brent Venables defense. Take that role. If it's Lewis Carter, Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, whoever they may be, Samuel Masigo, that's who I want to see be the X factor for the defense. On the offense, I'd like it to be a wide receiver. I think Jackson Arnold's going to look good, even if this line looks okay. I think he'll be able to pick things off. The Joe John Finley offense seems to be a bit of a smoother process here, especially with Kevin Johns as the co-offensive coordinator and actual quarterback coach. He's now had 2 weeks with Coach Johns to help develop him, make sure his eyes are going to the right place. Like one thing last week that just that the Lewis Riddick and the commentators brought up was sometimes Jackson just wasn't looking guys off. Now I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I could tell like right off the bat, but it's something that quarterbacks, whenever you hear them talk, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, Eli Manning, any of the big time quarterbacks that have ever spoken on a microphone, they talk about how it's important with eye discipline. You got to make sure that you either look people off and know the timing of where your wide receiver is going to be. That's why I think a wide receiver needs to be the guy that stands out here. Help with timing here with Jackson Arnold. If it's Zion Kearney, Brennan Thompson, as much as I've been critical of him this year or so far, if he can be the guy to step up here with Deion's absence, someone needs to step up and prove that they can be the wide receiver too. Because I don't think it's likely we get Jalil Farouk back this season. Andrew Anthony does not seem to be a this year return. We know for sure Jaden Gibson won't be, and at this point Nick Anderson won't either. So someone's got to step up as the number two guy to at least make us a pain on people's sides for the last two games, especially. I agree with you. This game and the Mizzou game are the two games that when you look at the schedule, especially if Brady Cook is still out with injury or if he re-aggravates his injury during the Oklahoma game, because it seems like that nothing is going to keep that guy from starting a game, but he may not finish every game. If he re-aggravates an injury playing us, someone's got to step up because we could keep them to 10, but this offense hasn't showed that they can score 11 if this defense can do their job. So someone's got to do it. Someone's got to step up with the wide receivers. I hope it's Zion Kearney. I think he may not have the speed that everyone loves, but he's pretty agile. We also haven't seen Jaquez Petaway very much. I don't know why. I kind of feared because there's a potential that he's kind of said, I'm over this. I'm not getting enough time and I'm going to hit the portal. I hope, obviously, that is purely like a speculation on my end that hasn't been reported. I hope that's not actually the case. We just haven't seen him very much since Hawkins was sat, really. And the pairing of Jaquez Petaway, because he would make plays that were explosive with a guy like Jackson Arnold, if he can get him the ball, that would be fun to watch. So hopefully those guys, someone steps up there for Jackson and makes this a little bit easier for him over the next 4 weeks.
There it is. Let's beat Maine. Please don't lose this week.
If we lose this week, there's no way anyone on this staff returns.
Yeah.
Zero chance. All right. Well, that wraps up like for this video. As Brandon said, don't lose to Maine. Make sure you not just win, but beat them handedly. Go down in the comment section. Let us know what you think about this upcoming game, your expectations. Maybe talk about a little bit about Coach B. Again, he's kind of been the hot topic for the week. So let us know your thoughts about his job security and what you think is realistic moving forward for this team and this staff. Follow, like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, follow us and everything down below in the description. We appreciate y'all watching. We'll see you next time.